Andrew Norman's concerto is called Suspend, and it is a fantasy for piano and orchestra. And in the long tradition of fantasies for piano and orchestra, or fantasies in general, it is written to sound as though it is being made up on the spot. The wonderful thing about a fantasy for piano and orchestra, the idea of an improvisation for piano and orchestra, is that there's this weird little paradox of, you're on stage with, 75 people, and somehow you're all improvising. There's a wonderful magic there, and it's an illusion, but that's why it's beautiful and exciting, and it's an illusion, but there's also an honesty there because it requires this kind of intimacy and connection on stage, and that is very similar to improvising. And Andrew's piece, I think, really gets at something very real about improvisation, which is that improvisation is actually all about listening. It's all about active listening. So there are aspects of this work that that really just require all of us on stage to be listening really hard to one another. It's not necessarily just this direct, okay, here's the beat, you do this, you do that. Sometimes it's that, but there are these long stretches of the piece where the orchestra is kind of playing independently and responding kind of their own individual ears and individual will. And so I love this, again, kind of freedom and structure, this playing with these ideas of what it means to be free and what it means to be held in and structured and orderly. And that's also part of the piece in the way that it interacts with Brahms. The piece was written as partially a reflection on Brahms, and specifically these two musical ideas in Brahms, which are expressed in these German phrases, frei aber einsam, free but lonely, which is F-A-E. So that's the F-A-E, just these three notes. And then, so that's one idea. And then there's frei aber froh, free but happy. And so, and that's F-A-F. And it's not, I don't think the specific notes are actually the most important thing for the audience to be thinking about, but it just establishes at a basic musical level, it establishes some of the core pitch material for the piece and relationships of the piece. But more this idea, this concept of free but lonely versus free but happy. So the piece opens with the pianist alone, free but lonely, playing kind of to themselves. So the pianist starts off completely almost in their own imagination, and the orchestra joins in, and the piece kind of goes through a more turbulent process and ends ultimately in a place of happiness, free but happy. And free but happy means that the orchestra is also free. It's not just linked to the piano anymore. The orchestra is also liberated in its own way. And there's something really simple about that idea. And as a performer, I really admire that because there's something so simple and almost naive, almost like sentimental, right? Almost, it's just at the edge of that. And that's a delicious challenge as a performer because it's honest, it's sincere, and it's so exciting to focus on really trying to inhabit that idea instead of necessarily just performing the idea. When something is this delicate, you have to really think about the distinction between performing the idea and living it, and that's very exciting. That's a challenge, and it's a fun challenge. The real work of being a pianist is actually kind of about being receptive to instruments and being able to relate to the instruments and being able to communicate